Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Renee DiResta. She's Associate Research Professor at Georgetown University's McCourt School of Public Policy and is very interested in this information flow. Number one, am I overstating, understating? Did I make any mistakes in your opinion, Professor?
No, I think what you're saying is accurate. I would say it's not just mainstream media that is wrong. I think the entire ecosystem is, full of BS artists at this point, independent as well as mainstream. So I think that's the one area where I would maybe disagree. But the challenge is people need to try to figure out what's real, and they have a huge collection of sources.
People are busy.
That's the problem. That's where I was going to go.
People have to make a living. People have to go to the store. They got to try to figure out what's real and what isn't real. Nobody's going to do, and they don't have.
Nobody's going to do that.
Out, they don't have a staff. I have a staff, and they're good.
Yep.
And I can give them Joe and Angie or whoever these people are, and say, chase these people down. People can't do that. Regular folks.
No, you're completely right. That is the main problem. The problem is that people trust what they see when it hits their feed because somebody that they chose to follow shared it, whether that's a friend, a media outlet, a news person like you, an influencer like Tony and Angel, and they think that it's real. People are still in the mindset that what they see is likely to be real, and we've hit a place in our technological and information environment where that's just not true anymore.
Okay, you teach younger people. Are they addicted to this kind of stuff? Do they have any skepticism about it at all, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, younger generations do. I have a 12-year-old son who says, nothing I see on the internet is real.
Really?
So I think the younger generation knows that it's not true. It's actually more, people who are still used to thinking of the media or the online environment as a place where they could get accurate information. It's usually a little bit more people who've been accustomed to that, generations that are a little bit older, people who still think of the internet as a place where accurate information lives. So younger kids are actually more attuned to it than we are.
Because I got, as I mentioned, texts from journalists who thought this was real, and they were gloating. Oh, look, O'Reilly, look at what ICE is doing. Look what Homeland Security is doing. Look at it. They're heinous. They're terrible, blah, blah, blah. And I go, let me check this out. And these are sophisticated people, totally drawn in by this fallacious presentation. Okay, let's advance the story a little bit. How much of a danger is this to our democracy, Professor?
The danger is twofold. One, it's that, as you're noting, when people do that, right, when you have journalist friends who reach out to you, it's because it hits something that they're likely to believe already. Yes, and they see evidence, and that happens across the political spectrum, right? So that might be a completely different issue that lands for people on the right than for people on the left. Right now, a lot of these ICE videos are making the rounds. You might see videos of riots, right? That would flip, that would land better with audiences on the right that think that this is something that is, more likely to be happening. So you see that happen where different content plays, and it hits you because it hits emotionally. And so you just hit that share button, you send it to your friend, and it's because you actually maybe don't even really care if it's true. It's just confirming an existing belief, and that's why you share it on. And so that's what's happening. And that's kind of dangerous to begin with, right? Because we're just in these mindsets where, as you noted at the start of the segment, everybody's very polarized. And so you don't actually care to check sometimes. You just think this is showing my enemies or my political opponents in the worst light, so I'm going to share it. And I'm not going to go check. Yes.
Right. But when you have, and this is certainly possible with AI, when you have the majority of voters not knowing what's real and what isn't real, I think there's trouble ahead.
That's the second part.
Right.
Because sometimes what you'll see is, in the incident that you showed, there's some signs there, right? There's that plane is very unbranded. It's a little bit suspiciously kind of 90s looking. Most planes don't have those cloth covers in quite that way anymore. They don't have those kind of bulkheads. But what you see now is, you don't even have to have the video. You can have a very plausible leaked audio that sounds like a politician saying something, but really it's a synthetic voice. If something like that drops 24 hours before a vote, that kind of thing can really shake people up. It can make them wonder, is this real? We've seen that happen in a number of European elections. There's nothing to stop that from happening here. And because it takes sometimes, between 3 hours to 2 days to actually go in there and figure out if the content is real. Sometimes these are very, very high quality fakes. There's that window, that time where people don't know what to believe. And if it sounds scandalous, you're going to have this environment where, again, people are going to be likely to believe it if they don't like the person, not likely to believe it if they don't, and they're not actually going to get at the facts or the truth. And that's one of these big challenges. The other side of it, though,
look, you can destroy somebody pretty easily.
Absolutely.
In 2 days. Particularly if that person's running for office, you can drop all kinds of stuff that they did this, they did that. Look at this video we have. Look at them here. Look at them there. And they're not there. Now, I don't think the law has caught up with this. U.S. law, we're supposed to be protected against fraud. This, when it comes all down to it, Professor, and please disagree if you believe that. It's fraud. This is fraud.
So the challenge you have is that what Tony and Angel would say is that this is political satire and that that's covered under the First Amendment. And that's legally correct, right? And so the question that we get to is, what do you do to help people then know? When you get at false information about a person, you have a little bit more in the way of law that you could apply to those situations, like defamatory content or likeness laws in certain areas, areas where you see candidates that are subject to harassment content, where, you know, female candidates in particular are put into compromising situations. That kind of thing happens sometimes. There are certain laws that apply to that. But for political content, this is protected under the First Amendment. And so one of the things that we are trying to do as we think about how to address this problem is, can you give people more context? Can the platforms, particularly social media platforms where this spreads, toss up a label, right? Can the models that are used to create it put up a label?
With that.
I know that's the problem. And this is the issue though, right? Where you're hitting that challenge of what, you know, and I'm the first person to tell you that labeling is not foolproof, that bad actors can strip it out, that it doesn't work in the case of audio. It is, and that is the other thing. It's the deluge. I wish, you know, look, I sound like I'm making an excuse for the tech companies here. I'm really not. Nobody's more frustrated than me. It is that balance. You were right. The law has not caught up. This is the environment we live in now. The other side of it, though, is that you have real content, real audio. Sometimes politicians do get caught saying dumb things on tape, right? And then they can just say, no, that's not me. That's AI. And that's the other side of it, right? So you have this liar's dividend.
That's not
where
nearly
you see
what
it is happening. That is happening also. We are seeing that happen. You know,
the assertion that there is a villain way overwhelms everything else. I mean,
yes, that's
these
true.
Nitwits who put this out wanted, I don't care what they say, it's satire or whatever, they wanted
they make a lot of money.
Well, I don't know about money, but they wanted a conclusion that ICE and Homeland Security were bad, were abusers. That's what they wanted, and they accomplished it.
The political piece, you're right, is true. But the other side of it is that a lot of this is financially motivated. We focused on the political here, but a lot of the ways that this applies that people need to be aware of is spam and scams. It is people reaching out, particularly to older people, saying, hey, you know, it looks like a beautiful woman, reaching out in a message. That person doesn't exist. They're trying to sell you a product. That product doesn't exist. A vacation home or a stay. That house doesn't exist, right? So it's actually financial fraud and scams that are where most of the AI-generated content is happening. In the political realm, you're seeing the skits, the satire,
but that
the
is fraud. But you can get prosecuted.
And
for
for the financial stuff, yes, absolutely, you can. So
all
I think,
right,
you know, last word. Thanks for having me on.
No, you were very good. Thanks for taking the time.